everyone, and welcome to Talk a Good Game. It's the Europa League quarter-finalists against the Europa Conference League quarter-finalists as West Ham United take on Aston Villa at the London Stadium. Charlie, can you kick us off with your thoughts on Villa, please?
Yeah. Look, they're doing really, really well this season. There's no other way to do it. You look at what they've managed to achieve so far, and I really do genuinely hope that they get Champions League football via league position. I really genuinely do. I am always a fan, regardless of who it is, of one of the non-top six Sky Sports top six, top seven, if you want to include Newcastle in that, because I do include them now in this. I always want someone outside of that to get those positions, no matter who it is. If it's not us, if someone else is within a shout, doesn't matter. I want them to do it. I want them to do it, whoever, regardless who it is, and I really hope they do. And I think they deserve it. I think they've been so good this year. There's so many things to like about them, and it's they deserve it. They deserve it a heck of a lot more than some of the other teams who are in that shout, who are there just almost via default. You know, watching them go up against big teams and take them on, watching them put all of the pieces together into a much more cohesive whole. I think they've been brilliant.
Have you got used to them being in the top 4 or 5 this season? Because the reason I ask is when, Leicester City did it and they won the title, I always felt temporary, like they were going to do it and then they were just going to disappear again. Newcastle had an element of what Villa's got this season for me, which is they're there to stay kind of thing. But this season, while Villa's been up there, I feel like it's deserved. They're there on merit, and I also think they're there to stay. Now, how long for beyond this season, I do not know. But this season, I'm not looking at it, I'm like, oh, wow, Villa might get Champions League football. I've almost, very early on, I found myself going, yeah, Villa are going to get Champions League football. I got used to it pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, I think it's still against them somewhat. I still think they're in a situation where they're gonna have to. It's probably gonna go down to the last couple of games of the season, really like last minute type deal. But unlike Leicester, I do feel like I'm just sort of used to them being there, and I expect them to stay there. After this season, that's a completely different story. No, I don't expect them to carry on being there. But like for this season specifically, I think they're in with just as strong a shout of anyone else, and I like you say, I don't look at the table and go, "Ooh, Villa are there." Do you know what I mean? I look at it and I expect to see them there, and I expect to see them there until the end of the season.
Right, will they do it? That's what we're going to discuss in a minute. Later on in the show, we're going to promote Match Bingo, but this weekend it's an enhanced prize pot, over £1,000 prize pot for the West Ham Aston Villa game specifically. So if you're an existing user of Match Bingo, make sure you get back on this weekend. We'll explain why in 20 minutes or so time. I think Unai Emery's done a fantastic job since he went in there. I thought it was a solid appointment. I never expected him to do this well this quickly. So I thought it was one of those appointments that he'll keep them well away from the relegation zone, top half of Premier League football. They might challenge for the European spots, and they may become a cup team given his pedigree with trophies in the past at previous clubs. But to have them up there competing, and at one point they were sort of close to the top of the table, and it was almost like, do we need to have a conversation about Villa being in the title race? And I don't think anybody had that. When I say anybody, I mean Villa fans. I felt they've been quite humble in regards to their team's achievements thus far and what they can go on to achieve. And they've become the team I've enjoyed watching this season. There's always one team, for whatever reason, they hook me, and I become fascinated with their tactics, with the manager, with the players, the system, and I find myself almost rooting for them as a neutral. And I've done that with Aston Villa this season. Whenever they're on TV, I look forward to watching them. If they're on at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, which is rare because of the European adventure, and we're not playing, that's the game I go to. I go watch Aston Villa, because the way that Emery goes about his business, I think it's fascinating. Every game's different. Every match he approaches in a completely different way to the previous one. I don't know what the starting 11 is going to be. I could maybe tell you 9 of the starting 11 for the next Villa game, but there's always 1 or 2 changes he does because of his opposition and the level of detail he goes into. He's on TNT Sports a few weeks ago, Unai Emery explaining his sort of two box 2 midfield and his false 9 and the way he uses Moreno. I'm just fascinated by Emery this season, truth be told. I think Villa have been absolutely fantastic and deserve it. And I'm a bit like you. I hope they do it. And that's the big question, Charlie. Will they do it? First of all, will they win the Europa Conference League? Now, at the time of recording, we do not know who Aston Villa have got in the quarterfinal of the Conference League. They beat Ajax comfortably last night, so we know they're in the quarterfinals. And second question, so Conference League, second question, Will they finish top four? Now, obviously, they could get Champions League via fifth, thanks to West Ham and, funny enough, themselves. Their success, our success in European football has made England more than likely to get that extra spot. So fifth should get Champions League football next season. So do you think they'll win the Conference League? And do you think they'll finish, let's say, top four to make it a little bit interesting?
They're definitely in the conversation for the Conference League for a start. Like they have to be considered one of the favourites. The way they're playing, and the way if we were considered one of the favourites for that competition, they 100% will be. And the way Unai Emery goes about his business, changing stuff off with the individual teams. Like I remember when he was at Arsenal, it was almost a criticism he got leveled at him, which was the idea of how much opposition analysis they would do, and players were really bored and really didn't take to the idea of having to sit before every game and really break up position teams down to the level they do. I think in a European adventure for them, I mean, it has to make them one of the favourites. It just has to. For some reason, in the back of my mind, I don't think they'll win it. I don't know why. I have no reason for that. It's just something in the back of my mind.
It's been a bumpy journey for them. It's not been as smooth as ours was. You know, the group stage, they got off to a far from perfect start, and then they drew away to Ajax in the first leg of the last 16. So it's not been as plain sailing as what we had it.
Yeah, I can't tell you why I don't think they will. There's something in the back of my mind that they will. But I think they should be deemed favourites, or one of the favourites at least. Champions League, I think they'll get it. I think they will. I think part of that is how good they are. I think part of that is also just who their opposition is in that sense. Tottenham are the ones who are closest to them. Tottenham should be there, but I don't think they will be this season. I think they started like a house on fire and then dropped off, and I feel like there's something about the team this season that sort of makes me think that Postecoglou's not quite going to get there. Next season potentially, but this season no. And then Manchester United, I don't think really are even remotely in that conversation right now, and I don't think I continue to think they won't be. So I think it's theirs to lose. And I don't think they will. I think the sort of way Emery's approached it, again to mention him and how they're playing right now, I think over a 38 game season, I think that benefits them. I think the way Postecoglou teams just go, probably you'd know better than me watching obviously his teams in Scotland and stuff, but I feel like they would probably get slightly worse as the season went on, potentially because they'd be tired or whatever. I don't know, just because of how much they work. Yeah, I can't see the other teams getting into that position, and I can see them keeping it.
I think they'll win the Conference League, and I don't think they'll get top four. I think they'll finish fifth, but I think they'll get Champions League via fifth place. And the reason being is because of their European run. I think that will cost them points between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, it's fair.
Whereas Spurs can take advantage of that because of that win. It was a pivotal win for Spurs last week at Villa Park. That's sort of given. While they're below Villa at the minute, it's probably giving Tottenham the edge because of the fixtures coming up for Aston Villa. And they've got quite a small squad, Villa do, I think. And, John McGinn suspended for this one. Ollie Watkins went off injured. So everybody holds their breath at that point, thinking, hang on a minute, this could derail our season. But I think they'll get Champions League football, and I hope they do. I think they deserve it. And, I think they'll get there. My only sort of question mark for Villa long-term is all the financial regulations. I'm reading reports, and this is where I'm not a Villa fan. So Villa fans think I'm wrong here. I accept that because I can only go by what I read in the mainstream media, which is that they may be forced to sell one of their main players in the summer to comply with the financial regulations. And this is where I hate it. I really do hate it because Villa, it's almost like, whoa, no, get back out of that top six. You're not allowed up here. Get back down there into seven. Compete in the top half with West Ham and with Wolves. Get back down that table. No, thank you. You're not allowed up here. And I just think, imagine getting to the Champions League spots. And you've got to sell one of the players that got you there in order to comply with financial regulations. And it just feels like it's more than ever. It just feels like they're put in place in order to protect the bigger clubs of the country. I mean, Villa are a huge club, but in terms of the traditional Sky Sports 6, it's like they're there to protect them and stop people coming in and encroaching on their top four. Sort of Champions League used to be routine for the same clubs every season. And I just think, I hope, in a weird way, Aston Villa stick two fingers up to it and say, well, do you know what? We're going to keep our squad, give us a 6-point deduction because we'll still get Champions League football. Because arguably selling one of their main players is probably worth 6 points to them. So you'd be better off just keeping him and taking the 6 points on the chin and achieving European football again, rather than trying to flog one of your players. I hope they're able to get around it and to go on and, continue to put pressure on the clubs that have traditionally been in the Champions League football. But it's a bright future for Aston Villa and a fantastic season for them. Last question on Villa, as always, Charlie. Players you admire?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I think. Do you know what? If you asked me, it probably Douglas Luiz. I love him. I just maybe not the first name other people pick out, but I just love him. I love watching him play. It was a risk. I thought it was a risk when they signed him to an extent, thinking because this is a guy who had a lot of hype. Pep reportedly wanted to keep him, all this other sort of stuff. But it's one of those ones where it's like, you see these ones work out and sometimes they don't. You only have to look at Southampton. They bought a bunch of them and it didn't really work out for them. And Luiz is just, I don't know. I just love him, Gio. I think he's great. I also love John McGinn. I say this every time Aston Villa come up, and I know he's not the glamorous guy, but I love him, man. The way he runs about, his anger, just all of it. I'm here for it. If you said to me, which one of their players would you just lob in this West Ham side, just even for the vibes, to say John McGinn, man. He's just non-stop. And I love that about him. It's the type of player that, especially in the Premier League, where we're trying to get a bit more fancy, and it's just rarer and rarer to see a dude who's just like, I'm gonna have you, like in just every sense, and I'm strongly here for it. Yeah, they have a lot, but those are my two favourite ones. They're the ones who I'm always like, look at those guys, look at them.
Well, I wrote down 4. You picked 2 of them. So the only thing I'll add to McGinn is I'm pleased to see him back to his best from a Scotland perspective. Under Gerrard, quite a few of them. I don't think Douglas Luiz was his best under Steven Gerrard either, and he's gone back to his best under Emery. The other 2 I'm going to pick out, centre-back Torres. I think he's sensational. I think he's up there with the best in the Premier League in terms of defenders. I've always been a big fan of Konsa as well, but Torres has just had such a good season. I don't recall him having a bad game. There's maybe been iffy moments in games, but over 90 minutes, his clash usually shines through. What a signing he's been for them. I think he's been terrific at the back. And I think I'd have him not quite alongside Saliba and Van Dijk, but I'd have him up there with the likes of Gabriel in terms of the next best centre-backs in the Premier League. I think he's that good. And then Ollie Watkins. I've been a big fan of Watkins for quite a few years now. One of the best strikers in European football right now. He's a doubt for this game, which is good. You don't want to see players get injured and all that, but I'll be honest with you, I was a bit hopeful when he went down against Arsenal, thinking, hello, is he out for Sunday? Yes, please. But he might be available. Emery said he could be available, I think was his phrase, but he's not going to be 100% if he is or not. So, but I think he's having just such a superb season. He's one of those strikers I watched that I just wish we signed him. I really do. I think he'd be perfect with the way that West Ham play. The role he plays at Villa is not too dissimilar to the role we request of Antonio. 2 different strikers and different strengths and qualities, but Watkins is top-tier striker in the Premier League as far as I'm concerned. Honestly, I just think he's unbelievable, Charlie. I think he's such a good player. Good finisher, gets lots of assists as well. Everything you want in a striker, Watkins has got.
He's one of those guys who I think he makes perfect sense for Emery and the way Emery plays and what Emery tries to do. It just just everything he can do just adds up. It's like Watkins is. It's interesting with him because I don't know if he would fit in one of the top teams. I don't know why. It's just something about it.
I don't think he'd cope at Man City, for example. But
yeah, but I don't think that's a knock against him. I don't think that's a criticism. I think it's just a fact of life. I think the same thing about Jarrod Bowen to a certain extent as well. I don't know how much he would suit one of those bigger teams. But I look at him and I just think, like you say, I wish we'd signed him because he's brilliant. He just does everything. He just does everything so well. And yeah, I'm not going to lie. The second I realised he was partially not unavailable, a doubt. It was much welcomed.
Right then, before we talk about West Ham, give you the team news. There's only one real big bit of team news, truth be told. Just want to point you in the direction of our Patreon. If you would like additional videos from Hammer's Chat, including our breakfast show, our player ratings, Hammerlytics, which Charlie does with Jack, but also online store discount and entry into our prediction competition, which is the big thing this week because we are giving away a signed Lucas Paqueta shirt. It doesn't matter which tier you subscribe to. If you win, you will win the signed Lucas Paqueta shirt. Now, there is only one overall winner. All you have to do is predict the score and the first goal scorer of the match correctly in order to be in with a chance of winning that shirt. However, if you are a mild addict, you will also win a signed Tony Gale autobiography or a signed Julian Dix print. You can choose. But if you're an addict, you will win all three. You will win a signed Lucas Paqueta shirt, a signed Julian Dix print, and a signed Tony Gale autobiography. You can join up to Patreon from £3.60 per month by going to patreon.com/HammersChat. The link is in the description below. We do our best over there. I regularly do podcasts with Anton Ferdinand to get his thoughts on all things West Ham, get a player's perspective on what he would do or what would be happening in the change room around certain circumstances. And he compared Danny Ings this week to Darren Bent in the sense that somebody doesn't really do much, but inside the 18-yarder comes alive. And to quote Anton Ferdinand, Darren Bent was a bagsman. That was Anton Ferdinand's quote. I liked it as well. I
love that.
Total bagsman. There we go. I'm having that one. Thank you, Anton. So there you go, from £3.60 per month. If it wasn't for Patreon, we wouldn't be able to upload as many videos as we do now. A lot of you might be thinking, bloody hell, give it a Patreon. We'll see less of you. Thank you very much. But if you would like us to continue doing one video per day per channel, then head over to patreon.com/HammersChat. Thank you to everybody that supports us. Right then, team news. No Maxwell Cornet for Sunday, which will come as no surprise. He still has this hamstring injury, which has kept him out for a few weeks. However, I think Emerson should be okay, Charlie, given that he had a late fitness test on Thursday ahead of the game. That would suggest he had a really good chance of being available for the match. And you would imagine 4 days later, he might be all right for this one. So I think what we'll do, we'll include him in the team you want to see. You can select Emerson, but give me an alternative. So if he was unavailable, what would you do? I think there's a good chance that we're going to pick the same 11 for this one, given that we beat Freiburg 5-0. Certain players playing. So without further ado, can you give me your goalkeeper and your defence, please?
It would be Fabianski.
What?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Areola, I guess, has to play, but I'm just trust Fabianski. There's the command he has, and actually, do you know what? Here's the big thing for me. He's so much faster than Areola. This is not something I would usually say. There were times last night, recording this obviously the night after, where he'd have to catch the ball and he'd throw it out instantly. And the amount of times I see us with Areola just waste too much time. And I'm so bored of watching it. Like, especially when we're going to go up against Villa, where we're going to need to create these chances as fast as possible. Because the thing is, Emery's going to... We'll talk about this, I suspect, deeper in a minute. But, like, Emery's going to have us scouted, right? He's going to have watched, say, the Arsenal game. And Arsenal, one of the things that was really notable to me was that Arteta set up much lower and much more defensive than he usually would. He had that off-the-ball stuff sorted. They would get back, they would get compact very fast, because they knew the second we're going to try and get into those spaces, and that's the way you beat West Ham. By sitting deep, compacting yourselves, stopping them from being able to create chances, because we're not very good at creating them against teams who are deep, and then you could do all your fancy stuff up the other end and be Arsenal and smash us, right? But that defensive side of it works. And I suspect that Unai is going to be looking at that and going... I just called him Unai. I suspect Mr. Emery, whatever, will be doing something very similar and go, this is the way we beat West Ham. And in that sense, we need to be as fast as possible. Areola can't kick long. And he just, I don't know what it is. He shouldn't be. If you asked me a month ago, I would have said the opposite. I would have said we need to play faster, it's Areola. I think for me, I genuinely think it would be Fabianski. And listen, that would then mean Areola would probably have to play in the cups or whatever, or maybe it's just a switch up thing. But I don't think we should be afraid to switch up goalkeepers when we feel like we could and we should. Like, we have 2 first-choice goalkeepers. It's not like the difference between, I don't know, pick one of many goalkeepers.
No, I agree. We've got 2 number ones. I remember Tom Down said to me years ago when we had Adrian and Mandolf, he said the problem is we've got 2 number 13s. We don't have a number 1. We've got 2 good sub-keepers. And then when we signed Areola, he turned around to me, and bear in mind this is years apart, he turned around to me and goes, we've now got 2 number 1s. I thought, I quite like that terminology, Tom, thank you. It's always stuck with me. He doesn't often come up with something that's as prominent as that, but I quite like that phrase that he said, we've got 2 number 1s. So I get it, but I massively disagree. It's Areola for me. They're going to have numerous shots on target on Sunday.
Sure, yeah. That's
because we just batted Freiburg to one side doesn't mean all of a sudden I'm confident we're going to keep a clean sheet against Aston Villa. This is a completely different level of opposition. The keeper is going to be busy, so who do I want in goal trying to prevent the ball hitting the back of the net? It's Alphonse Areola all day, every day. Probably our hammer of the year thus far. So Areola in the sticks for me. Your defense?
Yeah, it's. Sorry, I know you explained this. Are we including Emerson or not? Because if you're including Emerson, Emerson goes straight in, and it'll be the same as it was last night.
Would
But with
you
Emerson,
retain Kurt Zuma? Would you?
yes. As much as look, it's we're gonna get screwed by whoever we put in next to Mavropanos. Mavropanos is the one centre back we have right now who I have trusted, and even then, my man has a mistake in him or two. But realistically, he's the one who I think sticks in, and I think he's the long term option at West Ham. I think the conversation for another time. The centre back we should be building around. Outside of that, what are you going to pick? Kurt Zuma, who can't move and occasionally just decides he doesn't want to defend for some reason. You've got a Gerd who love that long pass, adore it. But my God, is nothing else about his game good at the moment. It's terrifying to watch him defend at the moment. Or you have Ogbonna, who, look, last time we saw him play, he was great, but I also felt like that was a massive anomaly, and I don't know if I trust him to bring that back out again. So I think by process of elimination, it sort of has to be Kurt Zuma. And I don't like that as an answer, but what else are we going to do?
If Emerson was unavailable, what would you do at left back?
I would put it would be Cresswell.
If he was unavailable, I'd go Ben Johnson, because his direct opponent is probably going to be Diaby, possibly Bailey.
Sure,
that terrifies me. I don't want to see either of them running at Aaron Cresswell, quite frankly. It doesn't matter which one it is. I do not like the idea of them running at Aaron Cresswell. So I think I'd put Ben Johnson in there for that aspect of pace, because I think Cresswell's been good in both games against Freiburg and against Burnley. I think Cresswell's been good. But I do think there was one or two occasions where lack of pace, he was exposed for it. And I think this game, he will get exposed a lot. And given the attention to detail the opposition manager has, I'd imagine Cresswell's lack of pace is something he will highlight and look to exploit. Villa like that ball over the top anyway, regardless of who they're playing. They could be playing the fastest defence in the league, and they'd still try and get Ollie Watkins in behind, playing off the shoulder of a defender. So let's not give them a slow left back to ping the ball in behind as well. And also the person next to him, and Kurt Zuma, is also slow. So there becomes a massive area of the pitch for Aston Villa to aim at in terms of getting players in behind. So I'd put Johnson in there, and I'd have a Gerd next to Mavropanos. It's the lesser of three evils. You've got to, if people, by the way, if you're watching, you're thinking, "No, I'd have Zuma, I'd have a Gerd." I think I speak for Charlie. We get it. Neither of us are that strong about who should partner Mavropanos. They all have their issues. They all have their weaknesses. I put a Gerd in there just because of the pace aspect. I do not want to see Ollie Watkins running in behind Kurt Zuma. And if Watkins is unavailable, Durand comes in. I thought he looked excellent against Ajax, albeit a poor Ajax side. But the way he played with the runs in behind, he's stronger than Ollie Watkins. A bit erratic in and around the 18-yarder, but that finish was marvelous. Off the end, I like a shot that hits on the side of the bar and comes down into the goal behind. There's something about that noise, the clunk of the frame of the goal. There's something nice about it. But yeah, that would be my back four. Sufal, Mavropanos, Gerd, and Emerson, and then Johnson if unavailable. Now moving into where we might match, which is the front six of the team. Top me three in midfield, Mr. Walsh.
Alvarez and... how much of it do you want? Alvarez and Souček?
Give me the rest of your team if you want, because I think we all know it.
Yeah, same. It's the same, right? So Alvarez, Souček, Bowen, Paquetá, Kudus, Antonio.
Has to be, doesn't it?
Picking anything else would be insanity, in my opinion. It just works. It's our strongest 11 by far. It's our strongest front six by far. I feel like it's the roles for each of the individuals work perfectly for the individuals for the most part. The left wing is sort of shoehorned in to a certain extent, but when it's Mohammed Kudus, you can sort of deal with that. And I think actually that was my big... At the beginning of the season, there was a lot of conversations going around the West Ham community about, who do we play on the left? What are we going to do there? Where does Kudus fit in this team? All this other sort of stuff. And I'd come across a lot of people who, when I was talking to them, would be like, play Kudus on the left. And I'm like, no, that's just not him. That's just not him. I've never seen him play there for a start. I've seen him quite a few times. I've never seen him play there for a start. Secondly, it's just not him. He wants to cut inside on his strong foot. He wants to charge at him and stuff like that. And the first couple of times we saw it, it didn't really work. It didn't really feel like it was happening. I don't know what's happened over the last couple of games, but he seems to just been. I don't know if it's clicked. I don't know what it is. But all of a sudden, him playing out there is actually a genuine option for us. He takes on his man nicely. He seems to be confident enough to not have to cut inside. Like, he's quite happy to go to the byline and chip it in. We saw that for Souček's goal against whoever it was. Can't remember now. Everton. We saw it for that. We saw it. Saw it last.
Against Burnley.
We saw it last night in the build-up to one of the other goals as well. I can't remember one of the chances. He takes on his man, dinks it in from that side. It's something that we lack a little bit. And actually, especially if we're playing, if Aaron Cresswell does play, I feel like it's almost a necessity that he plays on the left, because it continues to have that. It continues to be able to stretch the defence and give them something to think about on that side when we're attacking, that there is someone who's going to take them on. Because if Aaron Cresswell's there, he likes taking up those positions slightly deeper to get those early crosses in. It means that you're maybe not going to see someone hitting the byline as often as he will. If it's Emerson, then I do think there is a conversation to be had about potentially playing Paquetá out wide on the left-hand side and putting Kudus in the centre, just because that combination of those two is too perfect. But I think... it'd be, in my opinion, I think it would be silly. I'm not the sort of guy who thinks don't change a winning formula. That's not me at all. I'm all about changing the winning formula. However, specifically in this case, I think it would be silly to maybe switch it up too much. Even if Emerson is fit, I think you still play those six in the exact same positions you played them last time.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've just said, really. If anything, just be a bit more open to switching Paquetá and Kudus during the game. And the one thing
100%.
with Paquetá playing on the left has shown that Moyes is willing to give that position the license to roam to some extent. Mm-hmm. And if Kudus is on the left, I hope he still has that same permission as what Lucas Paquetá had. It's a bit more difficult because the guy in the middle is Paquetá instead of James Ward-Prowse. Now, I don't like Ward-Prowse per se, but he does get back and defend, and he will go out on the left to cover Paquetá if he's caught upfield centrally. I'm not sure Paquetá will be as keen to get back and cover Mohammed Kudus. But if we could allow Kudus to do the roaming that Paquetá was allowed to do to some extent, I think that could be very dangerous. And you could find yourself with some build-ups and patterns of play where you've actually got Kudus, Paquetá and Bowen all in the same area of the pitch towards the right-hand side, which would just cause mayhem. And if anything, I think Mikel Antonio is more likely to get back in and cover for Kudus if he does get caught out of position. So I would like to see a bit fluid. Villa is probably not the right team to go full-on freestyle against, but there's definitely options. But I completely agreed. Do not touch that front six. Midfield and attack, it worked. There was a healthy balance against Freiburg. They all played at worst well. They all played well at worst. Some played really good. Some played fantastic. But the worst performer out of that six had a good game.
Yeah,
that's good.
And just to add on to what you said there briefly about the sort of being able to be fluid and rotate and stuff like that, I think we've seen a willingness to do that when it was the three of them. When it was Bowen, Kudus and Paquetá, we saw us changing things up. Not infrequently then, halfway through games, you'd see Paquetá go up front for a while and Kudus would take up position on the left, or Jarrod Bowen would take up position on the left and Kudus on the right. We saw that, which is not something I think, if you spoke to the vast majority of West Ham fans, I don't think any of us would put that down as a strength of David Moyes. He tends to have his thing and stick to it as ruggedly as you want, sort of thing. And we've seen with those three specifically that there was this sort of a willingness to rotate in game and change things up. If it wasn't exactly working, let's try Paquetá up front. Let's try this. Let's try that without having to make subs, because again, Lord forbid he makes some subs. And so that's sort of something he's done. I think with Antonio, you only increase that strength. Hey, if it's not working, I'm not saying we do this, but you could put Paquetá up front and then have the three of them just running at people if you want to really create problems. If you want to change it up, maybe you do switch those Paquetá and Kudus around. I think that is a huge strength for that front four, is actually, to some extent, and although I know on the show we did this morning, I said I don't want Kudus up front, I'll accept that it's a possibility. To some extent, all four of them can play sort of in any of those positions. And I think during games, maybe Villa isn't the one, but certainly as the running goes on, that's something that should become a feature of us, just being able to go, all right, this isn't working, let's rotate these ever so slightly, and all of a sudden we attack in a completely different manner. And I think that's a massive benefit to those four specifically that we should be utilising.
Right, as we're coming to the end of the show, we're going to discuss the possibility of West Ham picking up points. But before we do that, I just want to point you in the direction of the sponsor of this preview, which is Match Bingo. Now is the time to get involved because they've enhanced the prize pot for this weekend. The prize pot has over £1,000 up for grabs. You can download Match Bingo, and you should download Match Bingo if you're going to by using the link in the description below or by scanning the QR code that's on your screen right now. That way, they know you come from Hammers Chat. It's important for us. We get recognition from the band. They say, hey, well done, Hammers Chat. You got someone to sign up. It's free to download and it's free to sign up. And there are free to play games on there, including bingos. But for the West Ham Aston Villa game, it's £2 per card. So £2 per play. However, the first line is worth £25. The second line is worth £50. But the full house is worth a whopping £500 on Sunday. It's usually £100. It's up to £500. Plus, there's a bonus pot of another £500. So if you get a full house, but you weren't the first one, so you don't win the main prize, you will get a share of the second pot. So even if you aren't the first guy to the full house, you can still potentially win money. So lots of money up for grabs, £2 per play. Please download it. The link is in the description below. And if you've already signed up, maybe get back involved this weekend. Please gamble responsibly, but that's why it's £2 per play. Gambling responsible is something they take into consideration when doing their games. You've got to be 18 plus to play. Link in the description below. Thank you to anybody that does get involved, and good luck. We've had over 10 winners so far on Hammers Chat. Lots of our subscribers are winning money. I hope one of you guys, genuinely, I hope one of you guys win that £500 on Sunday. I want to see it in the live chat on the review. I won the £500. Someone's going to win it. Surely. Please be
if I win it, do I get to keep it or does Hammers Chat win it?
No, it's yours.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen.
You get that money that you've got in your account, Charlie, from Hammers Chat is your money. So you win the £500, you get the £500. Maybe you could spice it up and give a viewer £100 if you win. You keep.
Yeah, I'd back that. I'd back that.
If Charlie wins the full house, one of you will win £100 on Sunday. You'll keep the other 400 though, and so you should. Right then, Mr. Walsh, are you confident?
Yes. Do you know what? I'm more confident now than I was, not just from last night, but over the last couple of games. I feel like that sort of horrendous period of form is sort of dissipating a little bit now, and we're finding some semblance of form, although it's very hit and miss, and at times we can completely.
Guess who I am?
Okay, let me put it this way: there was a period.
Guess who do you think I am?
Is that one in that one film that everyone was going mad about when she was in the boat?
I'm Charlie Walsh watching the first
let me put it this way. There was a period where we had 1 in 6, and we've won 2, and we won 2. Yeah, and we were probably, and to be honest with you, we were probably the better team in that game. My point I'm making is there was a period there where we were completely incapable of doing anything. I feel like that period is past. And we've somewhat finding something. It's not there. It's not quite form. It's not quite. Just to warn you, the washing machine has just gone on, and so I assume at some point this camera's going to start shaking. I apologise. I'm not saying we're in form. I'm saying there's semblances of the beginning of form. Whereas before, it really was blind hope. Now I'm like, okay, there's something there. Is there enough to take on a very in-form Aston Villa? I don't know, but I can't act like I'm devoid of hope.
Yeah, I don't know if they're in form. Let me just double check the results off the top of my head. The previous game, obviously, they beat Ajax. They lost against Tottenham, and then before that, they beat Luton, Forest, and Fulham. But before that, they lost against Aston Villa, Newcastle, drew with Everton. They're in decent form, actually. Their form's better than what I thought it was off the top of my head. I'm not confident, no. I think I loved beating Freiburg, but here's the asterisk. Freiburg were crap. They were not good. They were rubbish. Even in the first leg when we lost 1-0, they were rubbish, but we still lost. Burnley in the first half, we were dreadful. The second half, listen, I enjoyed the second half. The last 10 minutes I thought was thoroughly exciting. I enjoyed it. I was pleased to be there. I thought it was quite intense. I thought we were going to go and snatch the winner. Arguably, should have done via either the penalty or the disallowed goal. I'm not convinced that both decisions were correct. However, it's done now. That first 45 still exists. We were still dreadful against Burnley. And I think if we played like that against Aston Villa, we could find ourselves 2 or 3 down before half time. They got spanked by Spurs last week. However, The first goal was a really good one. The second one came really quickly after it due to poor play by Yuri Tielemans, got caught out in front of his defence, and then it was 3-on-1. Then McGinn got sent off for just booting you doggy. You don't know what he was doing. He just decided, I know what he was doing. He thought it would go down as a cynical foul and get a booking for it. He's trying to trip, but it wasn't a trip. He literally belted him across the shins, and it was a red card all day long as far as I'm concerned. So he's missing at the weekend, which is a boost. I'm hoping Watkins is missing. But that Spurs 4-0. They were 4-0 down by half. It's one of them. I think when your results are generally quite good and you have a game like that, you can call it bad day at the office.
Yeah.
You just can't call it that when it's happening frequently in a short space of time. That's no longer bad day. That's bad month. So I think Villa can just put a line through that result and move on. And often we talk about wounded animal in football, don't we? I think Villa, you might actually find you're coming up against a team with a point to prove, actually, because they've got Spurs breathing down their neck now. They've got an opportunity to put some distance between them and Man U, who are playing in the FA Cup this weekend, so it puts some pressure on them post-international break. I'm not confident. I'm hopeful. I've got a lot more hope and optimism than I did 24 hours ago because of that Freiburg game.
Sure.
But, yeah, the reality is Villa are still a damn good team in the Premier League, and whilst we are more promising, I will accept that. There is more of our play I'm more positive about than previously at the start of the year. I'm still not convinced. I don't think we've turned a corner or anything just yet. My confidence hasn't increased as such. So can I get any final words from yourself, Charlie, plus your score prediction, please?
Yeah. Okay. Earlier when we were doing the debrief at 9 a.m. live after every match, and you said... And we made a joke about saying something that's truly indefensible.
Oh, no.
Here's the thing, Joe. I'm not that scared. I don't know.
You sound scared.
I am, but... that's very fair. You're not wrong. I am, but... Okay, here's the thing. Right, I'm sorry because I've decided just now I'm not going to look at the comments of this video. Here's the thing about David Moyes. Okay. I think the way he sets up is the perfect way for this match. I feel like the best thing to do is to just deal with it and then just to ping them. Now, not something that's playing in the back of my mind. I'm just going to talk this through as we go. Something that's playing in the back of my mind is the fact that since Unai Emery has turned up at Villa, we haven't beat them. I know it's only been twice, but we drew and we lost. And before that, we were on a great run against them. Don't think it's entirely surprising Steven Gerrard is a crap manager. But still, the facts are the facts of the matter. I feel like, to be honest with you, if we tried to go toe-to-toe with Villa, we would get torn apart. I think we would get done in. And I think you saw that against teams like Brighton. We tried to go toe-to-toe with them. We tried to do bits and pieces. We tried to go all fancy against them. Didn't work. We reverted to what we knew. We smashed them, right? Now, I feel like when I look at Villa, that's probably the answer here. And I think one of my big problems with West Ham of late is we often get caught in this lethargic passing nonsense that we just don't need to be doing. We're getting possession for possession's sake. We're not actually doing anything with it. We're not being creative. We're not controlling the game anymore just because we have more possession of the ball. And you saw that last night. I think we had less possession. In other games, we have less possession, and yet we still managed to do what we do. Because the truth is, we went long, we smashed it, we went direct, and it works for us. And I feel like that's kind of what you want to do here. Like, the thing is, do I think Villa will be smart enough, and Unai Emery specifically is smart enough to know that and to try and mitigate that as much as possible? Yes. But like you said, Villa are under pressure in this game more than we are. They have to they have to win this game. Yeah. They have to look at this game as almost a guaranteed 3 points. They have to come here and go, yeah, we're going to get this. We need to keep up the thing. And that puts a lot of pressure on them, not only to win, but actually to get out there and get the result. And I feel like if you sit there and you sit back and you defend, I don't know. To be clear, I think they'll probably be smart enough not to do this. But realistically, it wouldn't surprise me if they were like, right, we're going to take this to West Ham. We're really going to try and put it on them. We're going to give it a go. And if that's the case, bring it. That's fine. Put it on us. Because that's the way West Ham win games. If teams try to step to us, that's how West Ham can do stuff. And in that sense, I'm not that scared. Because look, ultimately it is what it is. I'm sort of writing this one off. You know when you say at the beginning of the season there's certain games you just write off and they're sort of bonus points. Aston Villa wouldn't have been one of those at the beginning of the season. Now we're this late into the season and they're still within Champions League contention. It kind of is one of those games. I kind of write it off. It can't be, because when you're not in form, but you're sort of showing signs of sprouting form like we are, or I would say we are, you have to keep that momentum up. You do sort of have to keep winning. You have to show that you're worth doing it. And then it sort of begins to flow naturally for itself when we're in that stage. But there's something in the back of my mind that just says if Villa are going to be that, if the pressure is all on them, which all of these things are true in my opinion, then it wouldn't surprise me if they come out and try to dominate us and try to do what they do best. And that's going to sort of suit us. Defensively, do I trust us not to concede? Hell no. Jesus Christ, no. Like you said, I think we both picked centre-backs. We both picked different centre-backs. And both of us at some point during that moment said, this is the best of all of the bad options. And even then, the guy who they're partnering, and I love Mavropanos, he's got a mistake. At some point, he will just, for some reason, give the ball to Aston Villa. Like, it will happen. So, do I trust them not to score? No, and I think it's how we respond to that. The thing is, with Mikel Antonio back in the side, and that front four specifically the way they are, I feel like we are just as likely to score. And at that point, it's just a case of how the game plays out. Do I think we'll win? You said final score prediction as well, right? Probably not. Let's be real. Probably not. Having said that, screw it. 2-1 West Ham. What's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen? I don't really care. It makes no difference to me. I've already said I'm not looking at the comments, so no one can pull me up on it. Not interested. But yeah, I can't act like I said, I'm not completely devoid of hope. And that's not just because of the 5-0, although that is obviously a large part of it. I do feel like there is something happening. I do feel like there are the sprouts of form happening. It's the wrong team at the wrong time for that. But we've beaten better teams before. There is something there. It's just a case of whether or not it all plays out in the way it has to play out.
I don't completely disagree with everything you've said there. I disagree more with Fabianski and goal than I do with what you've just said in regards to the gameplay now. I think, could we win? Yes, we could. It's possible. We can win. I'm not saying we've got no hope. Like I said, I carry some hope and optimism going into this game. But hope and optimism is not the same as confidence, and I do not carry much, if any, of that. I think we'll score. I think we can cause problems. And it's possibly because I'm in this little of Emery this season at Villa, and that's playing its part on me, where I just admire Villa that much, and that's what's causing it. But McGinn's a big miss for them, and if Watkins isn't playing on Sunday, that's another potential big miss for them. Then I will get my hopes up. If I see Watkins isn't starting, I will think, get in. Duran's a good striker, but he's not Ollie Watkins level of striker. I think we'll lose 2-1, Charlie. I don't think we're going to get smashed. We lost 4-1 at Villa Park. I'm not sure it would quite beat that, but we've got the potential to harm them. What I will say, though, is that while there may not be as much pressure on us as there is on Aston Villa, we want European football next season via our league position, because while 5th is probably going to have Champions League football, that means that 7th will have European football, and 8th probably will. It depends on the FA Cup. Basically, we need to cheer on Liverpool and Man City this weekend against Man United and Newcastle. We need them two to go through and ideally avoid each other in the semi-finals and play each other in the final. That means 8th is guaranteed European football next season. A point here would be a good point towards that. A win would be magnificent. If we can get a win on Sunday, I will be ecstatic. I will celebrate. If we beat Aston Villa, I will celebrate that more than beating Freiburg. Although the occasion is big, beating Freiburg, qualifying for the quarterfinal Europa League is far better than winning match day 27 of the Premier League. However, with the level of opponent, I would probably celebrate the Villa one more, because that would be a huge achievement. Whereas Freiburg, while we were impressive and I thoroughly enjoyed it, I loved it, they were crap. I will not be able to say that against Aston Villa. I will say that was a bloody good team we've just beaten today, should we win. So my final prediction will be Aston Villa to win 2-1, but I'd take a point now. I think that would be a good result for us. And just slightly increases the chances of us finishing 8th this season. Anyway, that's it from us. If you've enjoyed this preview, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. If you've enjoyed this video and you haven't subscribed, please sort that out as well, because that also helps the channel. And both are free, it takes 2 seconds. Match Bingo, download the app, sign up to it. Links in the description below. And if you fancy supporting us over on Patreon, go to patreon.com/HamChat. Links also in the description below and the pinned comments for that one. But if you're already a patron, get your predictions in, because somebody hopefully will be winning a signed Lucas Paqueta shirt. And if you're an addict, you'll also win a signed Tony Gale book and a signed Julian Dix print. It's not a bad giveaway, is it? We'll catch you in a bit.